Hello everyone, today is the feast day of St. Peter and St. Paul. It's the day when traditionally ordinations take place, and it's in fact the 18th anniversary of my own ordination. Sadly, they've been delayed this year, so we think especially for those ordinands and candidates who, having finished their training, are now just waiting to begin. The reading for today is from St. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 16, verses 13 to 19. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gate of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." We've all struggled to remember a word and finally given up, only to blurt it out later in the middle of a completely different conversation. People who regularly do this learn to let go and trust that the word is more likely to come if they give up struggling for it. The story of Archimedes in his overflowing bath is another example of inspiration succeeding where perspiration had failed. Archimedes had doubtless fought with the maths involved in trying to prove that the king of Syracuse's crown was pure gold. He knew he had to compare the weight of the crown with the weight of a block of gold of the same volume. The problem was how to measure the volume of the irregularly shaped crown. Maybe as he climbed into his bath, after another wearying session on his abacus, he sighed and let the problem go. And suddenly the water pouring over his marble floor gave him the answer. Of course, simply place the crown in water and measure the volume of water displaced. Archimedes was so excited that he ran naked through the city, shouting "Eureka!" Preoccupied with the logistics of travelling to Damascus, Saul was probably not struggling for once with the theological absurdity of Jews worshipping a crucified Nazarene as Lord. He was perhaps wondering where he and his servants would stay that night, when suddenly the heavens opened and the grace of God poured down upon him. All the people of Jesus' day must have had the same problem as Saul, trying to understand where Jesus fitted into God's plan. They tried observing the behaviour of Jesus and drawing what they thought were sensible conclusions. This is how some Pharisees deduced he was working for the devil, since only God or the devil would have such power at their command, and they just knew Jesus couldn't be from God because of his unorthodox behaviour. Others looked at this unorthodox behaviour, the way he flouted Sabbath laws, the way he placed justice and healing above convention, the way he mixed with the common people and criticised the religious leaders. And they came to the conclusion that Jesus must be a reincarnation of John the Baptist, or one of the ancient prophets. Probably the disciples sniggered as they told their master these popular theories about his identity. But the truth is, they didn't have any better ideas. One or two of them possibly hoped he was the budding leader of a coup to bring Roman occupation to an end, while others followed him as a healer and spiritual teacher. One can imagine the smile being wiped from their faces when Jesus turned to the 12 of them and said, "And who do you say that I am?" "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God," said Simon. But far more significant was the sentence spoken by Jesus in response. "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven." Simon saw the truth not because of his great mind, not because he was more holy than the others, but because God revealed to him the answer. It's a sobering thought, but worth remembering, that a lifetime's Christological study may not bring the enlightenment we seek. But one evening, walking the dog may bring us into the company of angels. In the same way, although regular church-going is the bedrock of our faith, and many of us have found moments of beauty and truth in the liturgy and in the word being preached, it is worth occasionally going off worship's beaten track by going, for example, on a retreat. Holidays are important too. As we celebrate the feast of St. Peter and St. Paul, let us not forget that saints' days were the original holy days, times to let go and let God into our lives in his sometimes surprising ways. We may not be struck blind by an encounter with Christ like St. Paul was. We may not be granted direct knowledge of Christ's identity as St. Peter was. And hopefully a powerful revelation will not move us to run through the parish naked, shouting out the good news. But if we open our hearts in humility and give up struggling so hard to understand, we may find we are simply given what we have been striving so hard to grasp. Amen.